Have you ever felt like you're just performing a version of yourself? You go to work, you smile, you do what's expected. But inside, there's a quiet question that keeps echoing. Is this really me? If you've ever felt like a stranger in your own life, this video might change the way you see everything. Because what if the confusion, the emotional chaos, the patterns you can't break, aren't flaws? What if they're messages from parts of you you've never truly met? Carl Jung called this journey individuation, not self-improvement, not success, but something deeper, a process of becoming whole. In this video, we're diving into that mysterious path, into shadows, symbols, dreams, and the strange beauty of your unconscious mind. You'll see why you sabotage your own peace, why certain emotions seem to control you, and how you can begin to bring all those pieces back into harmony. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a woman I knew, brilliant, successful, but always exhausted. No matter how much she achieved, something always felt missing. She thought she needed better habits, more discipline. But when she started listening to her dreams, when she sat with her fear instead of running, everything began to shift. If you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, there has to be more to me than this, you're not alone. And this is where it begins. If any of this feels familiar, hit like and drop a once in the comments, just so I know I am not the only one who has been there. And make sure to subscribe, because this journey isn't a quick fix. It's a path worth walking together. Ready to begin? You wake up, scroll through your phone, check the time, check the news, check other people's lives. Another day begins, but something feels off. You're doing everything right. You're working, surviving, maybe even succeeding. But deep inside, there's a dull ache like something important has gone missing. You smile, you nod, you play the roles, friend, parent, employee, partner. And yet, when the noise fades, when the lights go out, a question lingers. Who am I, really? This isn't just a passing thought. For many people today, it's a quiet crisis, one they carry in silence. We live in a world that moves fast, demands much, and rarely gives us time to breathe, let alone reflect. And in that blur, we lose something precious, ourselves. Not the version we show online, or the one we use to get by at work, but the deeper, untouched, and honest version, our real self. Psychologists today call it burnout, anxiety, emotional fatigue. But Jung saw something else beneath the surface. He saw that much of modern suffering comes not from failure, but from fragmentation. We get split into pieces. There's the version of us we want to be, the version we hide, the version we forgot, and the version the world demands. And when those pieces drift too far apart, something inside us starts to collapse. You might feel it as a constant sense of emptiness, even in moments that should feel good. Or maybe it shows up as self-sabotage. You want peace, but chase chaos. You want love, but push people away. You want growth, but freeze every time it's near. None of this means you're broken. It means you're incomplete. And recognizing that is not a failure. It's the beginning of healing. Individuation isn't about fixing yourself. It's about finding your way back to yourself. Not the mask, not the role, but the whole of who you are, including the parts you've buried, rejected, or never met. Before we go deeper, take a breath. Ask yourself, am I living a life that reflects who I really am, or who I was told to be? If that question hits something inside you, stay with me. In the next part, we'll explore Jung's idea of the self and how it's different from your ego, your roles, or even your personality. But for now, tell me in the comments. Have you ever felt like you're just going through the motions? I'd love to know your story. When most people say self, they usually mean their personality, their habits, maybe even the voice in their head. But to Carl Jung, the self is something far more profound. It's not just who you are, It's all that you are. The self includes the parts you show and the parts you hide, the thoughts you think and the instincts you ignore, the kindness you give, and the rage you suppress. It's the totality of your psyche, both conscious and unconscious. In contrast, the ego, what most of us mistake for our identity, is just a tiny piece. The ego is your sense of I. It helps you function, make choices, and navigate society. It's essential, but it's also limited. Imagine the ego as the captain of a ship. But the self is the entire ocean. It's no wonder we feel overwhelmed when life gets rough. We've been steering with a tiny compass, unaware of the vast sea within us. Jung believed that many of our inner conflicts, anxieties, and strange behaviors come from this imbalance, when the ego tries to act like it's the whole show, ignoring the rest of us. The process of individuation is the return to the self, not by destroying the ego, but by helping it relate to the larger self. Think of it like opening a window in a dark room. Suddenly, new light comes in. You begin to see more, understand more, accept more. You're no longer reacting blindly. You're responding with awareness. This matters because without a relationship to the self, we drift. We end up chasing goals that aren't ours, loving people who don't see us, fighting battles that don't belong to us, and eventually, forgetting what it feels like to be whole. But once the ego begins to recognize the self, something shifts. We feel more grounded, less reactive, more intuitive. There's a quiet confidence that comes not from knowing everything, but from being connected to everything within. And that connection begins with curiosity. So, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where you felt deeply yourself, not performing, not impressing, just being? That's the self whispering, and it's calling you to go deeper. In the next part, we'll meet the first challenge of this journey, the shadow. It's the part of yourself you've been avoiding, but it's also the key to your healing. There's a part of you you've been taught to avoid, to deny, to silence. It's the part that gets angry without warning, that feels envy you don't want to admit, that holds on to old wounds long after they've scarred. Jung called this part the shadow. The shadow isn't evil, it's unconscious. It is everything about yourself you pushed away because it didn't feel acceptable, safe, or good. And the more you ignore it, the more power it gains. You see, the shadow doesn't disappear just because you pretend it's not there. It waits. It acts out in subtle ways, through your tone in arguments, the people you choose, the habits you repeat and regret. It shows up when you snap at someone you love, when you sabotage your own joy, when you avoid that one conversation you know you need to have. And here's the hardest truth. The shadow isn't just the bad stuff. It can also hold the good you've buried. Your creativity, your assertiveness, your desires. Maybe you were told that speaking up makes you difficult, so you learn to stay quiet. That ambition is selfish, so you learn to shrink. All of that, into the shadow it went. Individuation means shining light into those corners, not to destroy what's there, but to reclaim it. To say, this too is me. And that's scary, because it means facing the parts of yourself you've judged, avoided, or misunderstood for years. But it's also liberating. Imagine no longer being hijacked by moods you don't understand. Imagine no longer fearing your own intensity, your anger, your sensitivity. Instead, you begin to work with those energies. You become aware of your triggers, not ruled by them. One of Jung's most famous lines is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The shadow is where that unconscious lives. It's where the real work begins. And here's something to remember. You don't face the shadow alone. The self is always there, guiding, grounding, reminding you that you are more than your darkest thought. So, What part of yourself have you been afraid to look at? What feeling, memory, or belief do you keep locked away? If something came to mind just now, write it down. Gently, honestly. That's the beginning of integration. In the next part, we'll look at a stranger presence, the anima and animus, your inner opposite, and how it shapes the way you love, lead, and see the world. Inside every man, there is a woman. And inside every woman, a man. Not literally, but symbolically. Jung called these inner presences the anima, the feminine side of a man, and the animus, the masculine side of a woman. And they're far more than metaphors. They're the unseen voices that color how we think, feel, love, and reject. Think of the anima as the emotional, intuitive, receptive qualities within a man. She's the source of creativity, depth, and empathy. When ignored, she may show up as moodiness, indecision, or romantic idealization. The animus, within a woman, is logic, action, clarity, and direction. Repressed, he might emerge as inner criticism, stubbornness, or emotional disconnection. But here's the truth. No one fits cleanly into these boxes anymore. We all carry both sides, regardless of gender. This isn't about becoming balanced in a superficial sense. It's about integrating the energies you've disowned. Maybe you were raised to be strong, independent, unemotional, so you buried softness. Or you were taught to be sweet, agreeable, supportive, so you denied your anger or ambition. Whatever was repressed didn't vanish. It became a distorted force inside you. You might see it in the way you over-romanticize partners, expecting them to complete you, or in your urge to dominate conversations, unable to listen deeply, or in your self-doubt, always second-guessing your intuition. This inner split isn't random. It's the animus or anima trying to be heard. Individuation is the process of turning toward them, of listening, of asking, what part of me have I judged because of someone else's rules? And when you do, something amazing happens. Your relationships shift. You stop looking for someone to fill your gaps and start meeting them within yourself. You become more emotionally fluent, more whole, less reactive, more attuned. Because now the conversation isn't just outside of you, it's within you. So next time you feel emotionally overwhelmed or painfully disconnected, ask, what would my anima or animus say right now? You might be surprised by the wisdom they carry. In the next part, we'll explore the mysterious language your inner world uses to speak to you. Dreams, symbols, and archetypes. They're not just weird things that happen at night. They're messages from the self. Every night your mind tells you a story, but it doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols. A house with too many rooms, a child lost in the dark, a wave that swallows the sky. You wake up and think, that was weird, and then you forget. But Jung would tell you, don't. Because your dreams are letters from the self, handwritten, metaphorical, poetic. They're the bridge between your conscious mind and your unconscious world, and symbols are their language. See, logic can only take you so far. The unconscious speaks in images, not analysis, and every image, every odd detail, means something uniquely personal. A snake might mean danger to you, but transformation to someone else. A train might signal escape, or momentum, or a choice you're not making. Jung believed that dreams reveal what your ego refuses to see. They show your unspoken fears, your unacknowledged desires, your path toward healing. But you can't just Google "dream of falling." You have to ask, what does this mean to me? The power of dreams isn't in prediction. It's in integration. When you begin to track them, you start noticing patterns, repeated places, symbols that evolve, characters who return. You begin to see your inner world as alive, dynamic, trying to reach you. And then, there are archetypes, universal patterns of energy that show up across all cultures, myths, and minds. The mother, the hero, the trickster, the wise old man. They live in our stories, yes, but also in us. They appear in dreams not to entertain, but to guide, If you see a powerful figure rescuing you, maybe it's time to trust your inner strength. If you're endlessly chasing something, maybe your life is asking for direction. This isn't just theory, this is soul work. Because once you start listening, a quiet trust begins to grow. That you are not random, that you are not lost, that your psyche is trying to help you heal. Try this tonight. Before you sleep, ask your unconscious for guidance. Write it down. In the morning, write your dream, even fragments. Don't judge it, just record it. Over time, you'll start to see your soul is speaking. Are you listening? In the next part, we'll step out of theory and into real life. What does individuation actually look like in someone's everyday journey? Let me introduce you to Daniel. On paper, Daniel had it all. A steady job in marketing, a downtown apartment, a social life full of craft beer nights and weekend getaways. But every morning, he woke up with a heavy chest. Not panic, not dread, just this dull ache, like something was missing and had been for years. He didn't talk about it. He didn't even have words for it. He just kept going. Until one day, at a routine work event, he blanked during a presentation. Just froze. Mind empty, heart racing, and something cracked. He went home and cried. Unexpected, messy tears he didn't understand. That night, he had a dream. He was underwater, surrounded by broken mirrors. No reflection, no air. It haunted him. Out of impulse, he searched Dream Meaning Jung on YouTube. That led to a rabbit hole. Shadow work, archetypes, anima, the self. He wasn't a woo person. He'd never been to therapy. But something about Jung's words struck a nerve. You are not what has happened to you. You are what you choose to become. He started journaling. At first it was stiff. Then the pages flowed. Rage he'd buried from childhood. Longings he thought were too much. He started noticing patterns. How he chased approval, how he avoided confrontation, how he laughed everything off. He saw how much of his life was performative and how little of it was honest. Therapy followed. Shadow work, long walks without podcasts, dreams written down, emotional reactions studied like clues. It wasn't clean, it wasn't fast. But slowly he stopped being afraid of his own mind. He started saying no more, started painting again, something he hadn't done since high school. He ended a relationship that looked good on the outside but numbed him on the inside. He wasn't trying to be happy, he was trying to be whole. And that's what individuation looks like. It's not a straight line, it's a spiral. It is not about changing who you are, it is about recovering who you have always been beneath the noise. Daniel still has days of doubt. He still questions himself. But now, he listens. He knows that ache wasn't a problem. It was a message, a call back to himself. So let me ask you, have you ever felt like your life doesn't quite fit you, but you wear it anyway? If you have, maybe you're already on the journey. Maybe this is your crack in the shell. In the next part, we'd all look at what happens when you dawn to answer that call. How resisting this inner work can quietly unravel your well-being. Avoiding yourself always comes at a cost. It might not show up as drama. It might not scream. But over time, it erodes you. Quietly, persistently. You start to feel exhausted, even after resting. You feel irritated, but don't know why. You smile in photos, but inside, something's missing. This is what happens when the psyche is ignored, when the shadow is denied, when the self is unheard. You stay busy, so you don't have to feel. You stay entertained, so you don't have to think. You stay agreeable, so you don't have to confront. But your inner world doesn't just go away, it waits. And if you won't listen, it finds another way to be heard. Maybe it shows up as burnout, your body saying enough. Maybe it becomes anxiety, your soul knocking from the inside. Or in addiction, when you crave anything to fill the silence within. You think you're coping, but really, you're bleeding energy. Because avoiding your inner world isn't neutral, it's exhausting. And here's the paradox. The parts of yourself you fear the most often hold the relief you crave. The anger you suppress? It's protecting a boundary. The sadness you hide? It's mourning something that matters. The longing you numb? It's pointing to your purpose. When you avoid inner work, you trade truth for comfort, but never peace. You might get temporary relief, but the ache will return, because your psyche knows you're not meant to live half asleep. Individuation doesn't remove pain, but it makes the pain meaningful. It turns suffering into signal. It teaches you how to feel, without drowning. How to hold paradox, without shutting down. How to exist, without pretending. So if you've been numbing, or running, or distracted all the time, that's not failure. That's a clue. And it's never too late to come back to yourself. Next, we'll talk about how. Simple, real-life ways to begin the work of integration without needing to vanish into the woods or read 100 books. Because the self doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to show up. Wholeness doesn't happen in a single breakthrough. It happens in the quiet, ordinary choices you make every day to turn inward instead of away. You don't need to move to the mountains. You don't need to master every Jungian term. You just need to begin paying attention. Start here. 1. Journal. Not just what happened, but how it felt. Ask yourself, what part of me was speaking today? Was it fear? Was it confidence? Was it the wounded child or the adult I'm becoming? 2. Track your dreams, even fragments, even symbols that make no sense. You're not decoding a riddle. You're building a relationship with your unconscious. 3. Notice your projections. That person who irritates you for no reason, that celebrity you adore irrationally, that might be your shadow or your animus, trying to show up in disguise. 4. Make time for stillness. No phone, no music, just you, and whatever comes up. It won't always be pretty, but it will be honest. 5. Choose awareness over autopilot. Every time you pause before reacting, you invite the self in. Integration isn't about fixing parts of yourself. It's about welcoming them back, like lost family members at the door. The angry part, the fearful part, the visionary, the doubter. You don't choose one, you hold all of them. And that changes everything. You stop needing constant validation. You stop chasing peace outside yourself. You start moving through the world with a quiet kind of power, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and honoring it. And no, it's not linear. Some days you'll feel clear, others confused. Some moments will feel deeply spiritual, others plain, raw, hard. But each one is sacred, because you're not avoiding anymore. You're becoming. If this speaks to you, try one thing tonight. Before you sleep, ask yourself, what part of me needs my attention right now? Then listen, gently. You may be surprised by what answers. Next, we'll explore how your personal individuation affects more than just you, how it actually ripples outward into the collective. What if your inner work wasn't just for you? What if every time you faced your fear, reclaimed your truth, chose self-awareness over reaction, you were also healing something bigger? This is the power of the collective unconscious, one of Jung's most fascinating and profound ideas. It's the part of the psyche we all share, the universal blueprint beneath our differences. It's why people from every culture dream of flying, falling, being chased. It's why the same myths repeat across continents, the hero, the healer, the betrayer. And when you do the work of individuation, you're not just navigating your unconscious. You're interacting with the collective field of humanity. Think about it. When you learn to name your emotions, you become a safer person to be around. When you integrate your shadow, you stop projecting your pain onto others. When you honor your inner opposite, you challenge outdated gender roles. When you live with awareness, you inspire others to question, grow, soften, and rise. You create ripple effects, whether you realize it or not. Individuation isn't selfish, it's sacred activism. It shifts your family dynamics. It impacts your friendships, your workplace, your parenting. You become less reactive, more present, less manipulative, more transparent. You help others feel safe to be themselves because you're no longer hiding from yourself. In a world so quick to polarize, label, and divide, becoming whole is revolutionary. Because wholeness includes contradiction. It doesn't choose light over dark. It embraces both. And that's the world we're starving for, where people are allowed to be complex, evolving, human. So the next time you think, what's the point of all this inner work? Remember this. You're not just healing yourself. You're healing the story we all live in. And your courage makes room for others to follow. In the final part, we'll reflect on why this journey doesn't ought have a finish line, and why that S actually the most beautiful part of all. Wholeness isn't a destination. It's not a trophy you earn. It's not a state you achieve. It's a way of being, of relating to yourself, moment by moment, with presence and honesty. And it never ends. That's not a flaw. It's the beauty of the path. Because each time you peel back a layer, each time you understand a trigger, each time you hold a part of yourself with compassion instead of judgment, you deepen. You become more fluent in the language of your soul, more skilled at walking with uncertainty, more comfortable in your own skin. Some days you'll feel whole, some days not even close. But you'll stop seeing that as failure. You'll know it's just part of the spiral. You're not going in circles. You're circling deeper into yourself. And what you find there is not perfection. It's truth. Not control, but connection. Not a perfect version of yourself, but an honest one. You'll notice things shift. You'll respond instead of react. You'll create instead of copy. You'll rest without guilt. You'll trust without proof. And you'll stop needing others to validate your worth because you will be anchored in something more real, a relationship with yourself. So if you're watching this and thinking, I still don't know who I am, that's okay. You're not late. You're not broken. You're right on time. Because the journey of individuation doesn't begin with answers. It begins with curiosity, with the courage to ask, what else is inside me, waiting to be seen? And if that's you, welcome home. You're already on the path. If this series resonated with you, share one insight or moment that stuck with you in the comments. Let's build a space where real growth feels safe and seen. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, because the self is always unfolding and we'll keep exploring it together.